Oh, put it on YouTube, aren't you?
Yeah, it's going on YouTube.
All right, everybody, welcome to the studio at That Nerd Show, and we are here for the Saturday morning podcast. I'm your host, Marcus Blake, and with me joining on Zoom is the lovely Miss Julie Jones.
Hello.
So you guys finally get to see her snarky faces trying to keep me straight. And of course, we got Mr. Brendan Smith with us as usual.
Good morning, everybody.
All right. Well, this is a brand new day for us. We are actually doing a video conference call with Zoom for our podcast now. So it's audio and video live on our YouTube channel. And we're going to literally start off with this week's Sign of the Apocalypse. And it's us. We are 30 minutes behind because there's no fucking easy way to do this. Thank you, Zoom. So if it doesn't look right, if it's a little messed up, we're blaming Zoom and Skynet, which I have this theory that Zoom is turning into Skynet right now. I don't know if it's true, but that's what I'm going with. So anyway, like I said, you can check us out on our YouTube channel. You can just type in That Nerd Show in the search engine or go to thatnerdshow.com, or I'm sorry, youtube.com/C/That Nerd Show to find us in our channel. And of course, we've linked over to social media. So hopefully everybody is being able to click on and go into YouTube. But we do have a suggestion for Zoom. As you are constantly reinventing yourself every week with everybody using video conferencing these days, you should create a way to live stream to YouTube and Facebook at the same time. Just throwing that suggestion out there. Make it easier on us as we're trying to produce a show. Your bonus question with us is, well, I guess it is, can you guess the classic game in the background? And I should probably ask that question when the title of the game is not displayed on the TV in the background, but here we are. So anyway, we're going to roll with it. Today's show is all about what you should be watching during a pandemic. Since we're all pretty much quarantined, stuck at home, broadcasting from our own personal studios, we're going to go into shows that brand new shows on streaming content, also shows that are fun to revisit right about now. Because it's not like we have a whole lot of fucking stuff to do. So here we are. But before we get to that, as I said, this week's Sound of the Apocalypse is dealing with us. We do want to apologize for taking so long to get started, but here we are. And we're going to roll with it for the next hour or so as we talk about TV shows and movies and kind of how our lives are as we are quarantined. So this is the new reality for us. But thank you to video conferencing. We can do online gaming tournaments. We can do live broadcasts for podcasts and stuff. And it's been pretty interesting how the world has, adjusting to this. So the very first thing that we want to talk about is season 6 of Bosch. Brendan and I love talking about Bosch. It's one of the best shows on Amazon. So we're going to jump right into what we think of season 6 because we pretty much finished that last weekend, didn't we, Brendan?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it took me maybe a day and a half.
Me as well.
I got started it Saturday and was done Sunday.
Yeah, that's pretty much how it was with me too. And Julie, have you actually gotten into Bosch on Amazon? Or is it because it's not written by Aaron Sorkin, you're not going to watch it?
No, I've never seen it. I don't think I've actually even been interested in watching it.
Okay.
I think I heard about it once and then I was like, no.
Missing out.
I probably am.
Probably more of a guy show if you like cop dramas and stuff, but we gotta give you a hard time. By the way, we're all wearing our kind of favorite nerd t-shirts because that's how we roll. I love the Hogwarts short t-shirt. I'm wearing one of our promo shirts, the original Nintendo, and it simply says, we all remember our first time. And for most of us that are, late 30s, 40s, our first console probably was an original Nintendo or Sega Genesis or an Atari. But anyway.
We all remember blowing that cartridge.
That's a little sidetrack here, but we got to talk about young gamers. They don't have it that hard where you're just inserting a disc into a disc drive or whatever. They didn't have to blow a cartridge to get it to work.
Half the time they don't even have to insert a disc or drive. It's just downloaded from wherever. The ether.
I'm so disappointed because if you haven't struggled as a gamer to get everything working, then I don't feel like you're a true gamer. So sorry, millennials. I'm just throwing that out there. But anyway, season 6 of Bosch. And if you're a fan of Bosch, just in case you didn't know, season 7 will be its final season. So we've got one more season left and stuff. Brendan, what did you think of season 6?
First, I really appreciate the fact that they didn't go all in on the terrorist thing and it was just a red herring. Because I'm glad they resisted the urge to make everything bigger. And when you get into shows like that, 5, 6, 7 seasons in, they start thinking we have to make everything bigger and more spectacular. And it teased that it was going to do that. And then they were like, nope. It really is just a murder investigation. And we're staying true to the roots of our show and of the source material, the books. And it didn't try to, turn Bosch into 24, which don't get me wrong. I love 24, but this is a different show. And to try and emulate that or try to, turn it into that style of show would have done a disservice to the source material. So I was really glad that it was just the whole terrorist thing was just a red herring.
One of the things I've always enjoyed about Bosch is, unlike a lot of other shows that try to get too political with their storylines, they want a very clear message. It's very subjective. This wasn't about Bosch dealing with right-wing, nuts trying to take down the government. Yes, there's part of a storyline and you understand their storyline, but that's not the entire thing. And Hollywood trying to make, ultra right-wing conservatives, look bad or anything like that. There's enough propaganda on social media going both ways that we don't need a show that's just simply there to entertain us to get into it. So I agree with you about, the underlining story. I'm glad that it wasn't a major focus, but understand where they were coming from. And, you know, and we are dealing with spoilers here. So if you haven't finished it, we apologize. But
Too late.
yeah, you didn't have the gal blowing up a government building and killing a bunch of people at the end. She gave herself up, and you know, it saved lives and stuff. But like I said, there's too many shows that want to get political and take a stance on stuff within their storylines, and you know, they're very obvious about what their take is. And Bosch, yeah, you can kind of accuse him of being kind of a one-dimensional cop in the sense that he's very black and white on how he looks at things. But I also think he's smart enough to know that yes, I view things the way I view them, but I also respect other people's beliefs. And the other side of his character is, I love the veteran storylines. I think that is one of the best shows that really tackles the issues with veterans and the struggles that they have when they come home, or when you're dealing with a shitty home life and stuff. Hence the character that he was dealing with, who had a daughter that was killed by a serial killer. So I'm very happy with the way they ended it, with him paying for the funeral and paying respect to a veteran who had struggles.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to like about his character. So here's the question I really have about season 6. Did you feel like it took a while to get going? Because like the first 5 episodes, as much as I enjoy the show, to me, it kind of dragged before it really got going.
Maybe a little bit, but that's kind of the MO of the show anyway. It's a slow burn. It's more of a cerebral show. It's not a, action-packed shoot 'em up every episode. It's really about setting up the story and then letting it unfold in the later chapters. So maybe a little bit, but nothing that wasn't so jarring that it wasn't, a big departure from seasons of the past.
I don't know. I felt like this moved a little bit slower than past seasons. So that's why I asked the question. I think, even when you were dealing with serial killers and stuff in previous seasons, I get what you're saying about a slow burn, but I feel like you kind of jumped right into the action, early on, and you were hooked within the first couple of episodes. This one, I didn't really feel that way. I didn't really get that excited about the season until about halfway through. So, you feel like it took away from season 6, or do you still rate season 6 pretty high?
I'd probably give it an 8. If I had to nail it down with a number. I don't think it was perfect, but
is this like the first time that I'm about to give something a lower grade than Brendan? Because I gave it a 7.
All right, well, hey, there's a first time for everything,
Well, I had to throw that out there because my final grades on stuff tend to be higher.
Yeah, usually.
Yeah, but as much as I loved it, I just couldn't quite go like it was the best season, of Bosch. And I really didn't think so. I think they are kind of.
No, I don't think it was the best season of Bosch. I probably wouldn't even, out of 6, I'd probably put it maybe 4th or 5th.
Well, I think they're definitely starting. You can see the end of the light at the light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak, with this show. That, yeah, you can. Any cop show can always come up with, great procedural storylines and stuff, because there's so much out there. I mean, Blue Bloods tends to do it like every week and still roll out 20 episodes a season. And I swear to God, they're turning into the new Law and Order. And it's fine, but it's like, how much are we really going to do with this character? I'm not saying that they couldn't come up with more and interesting storylines, but again, it's, when does it become so saturated that it's not that interesting anymore?
Yeah, I mean, I think 7 seasons is probably a fine place to cut it. I mean, Titus Welliver's not getting any younger. Number one, don't get me wrong, he's a phenomenal actor. Sure. But honestly, I think the way they should end it, just because it would piss Bosch off, is that captain's got to go. I mean, he's just an idiot. And I I think the lieutenant will get promoted to the captain spot, and I think they're going to promote Bosch to be the lieutenant of detectives, and he's going to hate it.
Well, that's another
The worst thing they could do is promote him.
That's the other thing that they brought into in dealing with the, sexual harassment claims in the Me Too movement, and they turned it on its head. I really kind of enjoyed the story. I mean, they didn't mock the Me Too movement at all, but they also gave a different perspective that you didn't need to blow it out of proportion, that two people can work those issues out without formal complaints being made. And again, we're not going to get into it or anything like that. We're not mocking the movement or sexual harassment. It's obviously a terrible thing, but a lot of times it's just co-workers having a bad day and being made to feel uncomfortable or whatever, and you can talk about it as an adult and apologize, have a beer, and go on. It's not like you're working for Joe Biden who's sniffing your hair all the time. But sorry, I had to throw that out there. Just because the memes have been quite hilarious about it. But
327 million people in this country, and these are the two people we've got to put forward for president.
Yeah, I know. By the way, as we get closer to the election, one of the things that I'm probably going to watch over and over is one of the greatest South Park episodes ever. Would you, giant douche or turd sandwich?
Personally, I'm going for Cthulhu Trogdor in 2020 because why settle for a lesser evil
Sold.
when you can have the greater evil?
All I want is to do
burn and eat the peasants.
It is something that while we don't talk about politics on the show unless we're lampooning something. Nice.
Or in this case, harpooning it.
Well,
Marcus, I hate to do this to you. I'm gonna step away 2 seconds because my dog is begging me to go on the patio. I apologize. Pitfalls of being live.
There you go. That's the way it works. But anyway,
well, Brandon's away. Look at my Cthulhu.
Julie, distracting the audience with cute things.
He's so cute. He's cute and evil in equal proportion.
Well, like I said, we're very sarcastic when it comes to politics. We offend everybody equally, and when we talk about politics, it's more in the vein of satire when it comes to making fun of everybody. So, one of the best T-shirts that I ever got for voting, unfortunately, it got holes in it, so I have to stick with my Bartlett for America T-shirt on election day. But I had this one from 2008 before we ever started that nerd show. Vader and Palpatine running for president, take a ride on the dark side. So I'm like, that's about accurate. Anyway, season 6 of Bosch. If you haven't gotten into Bosch yet, this is a good time to start checking out the series. One of the best crime dramas out there. They do it very well. And I'm glad that Amazon has it because I don't think you get the same feel for the show if it was on regular TV. So you're able to
agreed.
Yeah. And each season is only about 10 episodes. So if you're making that excuse of there's so much to get through. How many of you binge watched all of Game of Thrones right before the final? Julie.
Guilty. That was me.
Exactly.
I did that.
If you felt like streaming 60 episodes was a lot,
Let's say if you've ever watched The Lord of the Rings back to back to back, that's one season of Bosch.
Why do I feel personally attacked right now? It's like you guys are.
No, we're just giving you a hard time because you guys had to get through so much Game of Thrones.
Julie, I think that's more of a you projecting onto yourself, because I was just saying that because I have binge watched Lord of the Rings back to back to back many times.
Yeah.
That's so guilty.
What else are you going to do on a Saturday when you're quarantined?
Or if you're
Add
sick.
in The Hobbit.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Oh yeah. That's our weekend. That's what we do.
I always make this
before quarantine. We were doing that.
I always make this argument with studios when they think to themselves, we really can't have a 3-hour movie. We need to cut it down and we need to cram so much into one movie, The Rise of Skywalker. And I'm like, you made us watch 3 3-hour Hobbit movies. Like, I don't even know how you pulled together storylines from a book that was like 300 pages. I mean, you just threw stuff in there and really stretched. Like, that movie could have just been 3 hours by itself, to tell the entire story. But no, we got 3 movies, and we sat in the theater watching those movies. So don't tell me that people aren't willing to sit for a 3-hour movie.
Hey, I sat through Avatar.
Oh my God.
I hated that movie so much.
Everybody
was raving about that movie, so I watched it, and at the end, I regretted it so much.
Hey, you know
And
what?
now we're getting Fern Gully 4 through 7. Yay.
You leave Fern Gully alone. Fern Gully is great.
Julie, I
different.
watched Avatar not too long ago again. I hadn't seen it in a while, but it was also called Dances with Wolves. So, but anyway,
Sci-fi version. It's the sci-fi
right.
edition.
I don't need blue people telling me about, relocating a race or whatever. I just need Shumani Tutanka. Anyway.
I would love blue people telling me about relocating a race. I think that would be great.
Yeah, if they were the Chiss and it was set in Star Wars.
So if there is one good thing about the quarantine and movies being delayed and stuff, we did get a press release that they are delaying the Avatar movies, not indefinitely, but they are pushing them back like another year or 2. So there's kind of a reprieve of having to endure all that. Although I think when we get to the point of doing those press screenings, it's just going to be like who's on rotation.
We're going to draw lots to see who gets stuck doing it.
Right. But you are allowed to drink during the movie. Anyway.
Oh, and I will.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. So moving right along, we want to get into other shows that we have checked out, shows that are fun to revisit. And I want to turn this over to Julie. Because I want to comment on something that you texted me this week when I was asking you about Tales from the Loop, the new Amazon show. I have not had a chance to sit down and watch it. You did our review on it. You gave it a
But I don't remember what I said to you.
Well, you simply said that it's a good show, very interesting, but don't watch it if you're not in a happy place.
Oh yeah, because it's very so I enjoyed the stories. The stories were great, but it's hard to describe, but it's got like this heavy feel, but in a light kind of way. It sounds so stupid when you say it that way, but it's one of those things that it makes you feel more lonely and it makes you feel a little bit sad, but it's shot aesthetically, it's light and airy. It's very odd, but yeah, you probably, if you're quarantining and you're in a place where you're like, oh, my life is so depressing and what is life for? Don't watch it. It's not the kind of thing you're gonna watch.
I gotta say, I had to look it up real quick because Marcus, I thought you said it was Tales from the Loo. And I'm like, what is this? A British television show about a public restroom?
And then you're like, okay, well, it's a British show, so I've got to check this out.
It's like, and then she's like, it's heavy but light, and I'm like, well, kind of sounds like a hangover poop.
You know what's funny? There's a writer out there that's got writer's block, and we just helped them. Tales from the Loop. That sounds interesting. The script is being started now.
You're gonna have to get the writers from Coupling to do that one. Bring Jeffrey back.
Oh, Jeffrey. It's funny too. I actually
speaking of shows to watch while you're,
I know.
While you're quarantined.
Somebody made a mention that on social media that it's a good time to start binge watching Friends again. I'm like, no, it's not. It's a show called
Don't do that to yourself. No. You don't need that kind of punishment. It's not that bad.
Right.
Friends is only good for 2 things. There's 2 little gifts that I like to use on Facebook that are from Friends, and that's it.
So basically what you're saying about Tales from the Loop, that it's probably not a good one to watch during quarantine because it's very heavy.
If you're quarantining and you're in a really great space, like if you just did a self-care day and you're feeling really good and you're like, I've got some emotion to spare, I can go ahead and throw that in, then it's not that bad. But if you're in one of those places where you're just like, I want to go outside, I want to do things, I want to be with my friends, it's just going to make you feel more lonely, and nobody
Okay.
needs that right now.
All right. Well, there you go. And it's a good point. Our moods change all the time, and what's going to fit our mood. If you're having kind of a bad day, let's go watch something heavy that I really have to think about. Versus, like, I've got a writer friend who has been going back and watching like old action movies. He's a gun nut and kind of an anarchist, and I helped get his first book published. Um, and he's been rewatching like 80s action movies. So he's been doing reviews on like Tango and Cash and stuff like that.
Roadhouse.
Yeah, Roadhouse.
Now, if you want to get really into 80s, if you want to go really down the 80s action movie rabbit hole, don't even go with the A stuff. Go into the B stuff, like American Ninja with Michael Dudikoff.
Oh my God, yes.
Hey, if you want to get really quirky, there's the Lobster Man from Mars.
Stick with my American Ninjas.
80s action movies. If you are, really feeling pro-America with everything that's going on today, you can, Red Dawn is always a great one to pop up in the back.
The original one, not the remake. Don't you
No,
dare
no.
do it.
Yeah,
No,
there is no remake. The remake does not
So-
exist in our world.
So I have to share this story now since you brought up the remake. Brendan had the luxury of not being around or working someplace, so he didn't have to join me for the press screening of the remake. I did. I sat through it, and they had the Josh Peck, the kid from the Nickelodeon show, came in and did a Q&A and stuff. He was very nice. I'm not saying he's not nice, but he was clearly there for the little teenage girls to yell and scream about. Not only was the movie absolutely horrible, and thank God for alcohol, but we're professionals. We sit through horrible movies sometimes, like the Joker.
Oh, tell me about it. Even when we want to leave and we're squirming in our seats, and our
And your editor
editor
tells
is like,
you-
you have to stay here, and all I want to do is
I
cry.
have to be an editor. No, we're professionals. We sit through this. But I did it, and I left the Q&A, and the rep was like, "Where are you going?" I was like, "Yeah, we're going to do our review. This isn't worth our time. I'm kind of done with it." And I did. I completely trashed it on our podcast the next week. That it wasn't worth remaking. And the funny thing about the film is it sat like in the MGM vault for
2 years?
while they were in bankruptcy, and they just decided, oh well, we shot the movie, let's throw it out there and do some press for it. And I think even the actors forgot that they were in the movie. So I'm like, there was really no reason to do this. But the original is absolutely great to go back to. Another reason I was reminded for it is, we're quarantined, so of course, getting past all the political propaganda on social media, we also got to get to, great and funny memes. With high school seniors not being able to have their graduation this year, which, is very unfortunate, one of the best memes is a picture of the Red Dawn cast, the Wolverines, with a little caption that says, "Just remember, the class of 1984 also missed their graduation."
Yeah, I saw that one.
Yeah. And by the way, that movie's also good for people who grew up in the 80s. We didn't need Ronald Reagan or the news to tell us not to trust the Russians. That movie did it for us, and Cubans. So
Yeah.
all right,
Cubans.
So,
Just give us your cigars and leave.
right. I got to give a shout out to our friend, actress Rebecca Evans on this. We were hanging out not too long ago. Yes, we broke quarantine and whatever. I had to give her a company login so she could watch Picard. She wasn't able
It was
to watch
less
Picard.
than 10 people. You're okay.
Yeah, right. So anyway, I feel ashamed that I did not know about this show, but she was talking about shows on PBS, and it's pretty
Downton
much
Abbey.
well that. But speaking of British shows, there is a show called Vicious with Ian McKellen and Derek Jacobi, who are actors been in a, relationship with each other for almost 50 years. So if you want a great show of Ian McKellen really getting to be flamboyant, birdcage style as an aging actor with a young, hot neighbor fighting with his lover that they still haven't told their parents they've been together for 50 years. I watched the first season and I was like, oh my God, this show is brilliant. Why did I not know about this? I feel ashamed as a nerd because I love Ian McKellen not to know about this show. So I get a chance to tell people that are just like me that have never heard of it. And again, I don't even remember it being on PBS. That you should go check this out. If you like The Birdcage and you like Ian McKellen, this is the show you need to watch. It's called Vicious. Also, if you like the actor Ewan, who played Ramsay Bolton on Game of Thrones, and of course we all hate his character, but he's a wonderful actor and a musician. He plays the young hot guy that lives next door that they're always kind of hitting on and stuff. And it really shows his comedic chops, with all of these great British older actors. So I'm recommending to that. I just, again, I feel bad that I did not know about this show, but it's Ian McKellen. Has he ever really made a bad movie or TV show?
It's too much stuff to go through to say no to. So say that he has. So,
No.
like, he may have, but I probably won't ever watch everything he's ever done in my lifetime. So I probably won't find it.
Right. So, all right, we're gonna kind of go around and talk about other shows. Now, Julie, I'm going to start with you, since you've already said that Tales from the Loop is really heavy if you're in quarantine. What have you been getting back into lately, or have you checked out anything new that is a great show to recommend while you're quarantined?
We just rewatched Preacher, which I've always Preacher. Which
Oh,
I've always thought was
AMC
pretty
show.
good. Yeah, and it's based off of a comic. The comic is pretty decent. And I like the show. Like it's very quirky towards the end. I mean, the final season just finished. Well, I don't know if it was just finished, but I just saw it on Hulu. So we decided to rewatch the entire thing. And it's got some really hilarious parts. So I think that's probably, if you're quarantining, that's probably a good roller coaster. Like there's some pretty good action in it. There's some really funny scenes, and then there's some kind of more heartfelt scenes. So it gives you a little bit of everything, and you don't have to worry about coming out of it depressed. It's more kind of a what the fuck did I just watch sort of show.
Now, since it is based on a comic, have you actually read the comics?
Not the entirety. I have the first book, and it's pretty comparable. I mean, it's not frame by frame, of course, but
Right.
it's the stories are very similar. And if you've read the comic, I think there's still a little bit left for you to discover, but not a lot.
Okay. Well, it's interesting. We've never really covered the show. I think we had a blogger cover maybe the first season years ago, but it was one of those kind of like Sci-Fi Channel shows that got lost in the shuffle of everything that we cover.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that you talk about that. Now, you enjoyed it?
I did. I thought it was great. I mean, there's some parts where you want to scream at the TV and you're just like, what are you doing? It's really stupid. But I think that kind of shows like the involvement, like how you get attached not only to the characters, but also to the storylines.
Right.
So I think that just exhibits how good it is.
Okay. Fantastic. And they only did 4 seasons, so it is all on Hulu if you have Hulu right now. It's a good one. It's one of those on my list that I'd like to go back and check out, in between binge watching Star Trek and everything. Now is a really good time to get back into Star Trek, if nothing else, because it's the world that we really want. Can we just get to the 24th century, fly on a really cool starship? And anytime I hear news about, Space Force, I'm immediately thinking, Starfleet, we're going to get that. And then you're kind of like that meme that's going around. Nah, it'll be more like Spaceballs.
Honestly, I don't think so. I think it'll be more like the Orville.
Oh, I'd be kind of okay with that.
I want pot brownies out of a replicator.
Right.
I admit that I've watched the first season and half of the second season. I just never got back into it. I like the idea, but I think I really want more Galaxy Quest than anything else.
Well, the Orville hasn't had a second season yet. It doesn't come out until the fall.
I thought it was the third season. Then what did I watch?
I don't know.
Oh no, the second season did come out. It's the third season.
Oh,
I could have sworn I watched half of one season. I don't know.
shit. Well, I've got another season to watch then. Okay.
See what happens when you've been working a lot, you forget what's on TV.
Yeah. I guess those
but, you know,
2 jobs, 70-hour weeks really maybe.
Right. I know it's hard to get caught up. Brendan, because you've got a lot more free time right now, what have you been getting back into? Have you gone back to watch anything or discovered anything?
Yeah. Just because season 7 of the Clone Wars dropped, I've been rewatching a lot of the Clone Wars, and
Julie's going to distract us with cute things.
But I love the first season of the Clone Wars, it takes a little, because it was a little geared too much towards kids. And
Right.
then they realized, wait, I think they looked at their demographics and were like, hey, the parents are watching this more than the kids. Let's kind of skew it a little bit more adult. And it gets progressively more adult themed and a little bit darker as you go on, especially when they reintroduce Maul. Season 7 has been up and down. I liked the Bad Batch story arc, the one it started with, the one where Ahsoka goes off and is kind of finding herself. That one was very inconsistent. This current arc, the Siege of Mandalore, is amazing. 2 of the best episodes, probably 2 of the best entries of anything in Star Trek, period. Like right up there with Empire, A New Hope, and Rogue One. That good. And as good as The Mandalorian was, these 2 episodes have been right up there with anything from The Mandalorian. I can't wait to see the next 2 episodes. I think they're actually going to cut them all together and either release them theatrically as a movie, which would be fitting considering the Clone Wars started with a movie.
Right.
And then, or just maybe if we're still quarantined, maybe they'll just go straight to Blu-ray with it. But it's been phenomenal so far. And, they brought Ray Park back into motion cap Darth Maul for all of his fight scenes with Ahsoka. And it's pretty insane. I'm really looking forward to seeing the next 2 episodes. So that's one of the things that I've been watching.
Sorry, excuse me, everybody. Since you brought up a theatrical release, that reminds me, do you remember, I know it's been like 7 years now, Fandango released episodes of Star Trek Next Generation into the theater. We got to go do give away tickets and do promotion for it and stuff.
Yeah, we got to go see the best of both worlds. It was the Borg episodes.
Right.
The Locutus.
They did the 2-part, back-to-back episodes because they had just released everything on Blu-ray, and of course Q&As with the cast and stuff like that. That's what I think should be done with this too. I mean, it feels, I have to admit, after a couple of months, it feels really weird not doing press screenings and going to the theater. But some of these things really should be released to the big screen. It shouldn't just be watched at home and stuff. So I agree with you on that. But I'm kind of throwing that out there that, hey, Fandango, if you want to do like promotion or Disney or whatever and release something good in between while we're waiting for all these movies that should have come out, let's do it.
Yeah. So it wouldn't surprise me.
Well, the other point I want to make too about Star Wars and when for TV, whether it's Clone Wars, Rebels, or The Mandalorian, I think like most things, they start to hit the ground running and get better by the time they get to the second season. Because you're right about the first season of Clone Wars where it was kind of all over the place and they changed the perspective.
Ahsoka kept calling R2 R2E, which drove me insane. I was so glad they stopped her doing that.
Well, first season of Rebels was great. you know, you brought, there was a lot of nostalgia to it. It you know, very much brought us into the world that was going on. But it really is not until season 2 when you got Ahsoka, and I really started, you know, getting into the mysteries of the Inquisitors, Sith, and stuff like that. And then you literally end with Ahsoka facing off against her, you know, Anakin / Vader. And
Yeah, I think that show really picked up for me. It was still in season 1, but it was very at the end. It was episode 7 when they brought in Grand Moff Tarkin, and then of course the season 1 ends with Vader walking off the Lambda class shuttle, and everybody was like, "Oh shit!"
Right. But that's my point. Is you talk about how it takes a little while to kind of get, you know,
find their bearings.
Right. And that doesn't surprise me about, you know, the last season of the Clone Wars. I watched a few, you know, the first few episodes, and they were great. It's like, that's fine that you're explaining what's going on and stuff. But I think having a storyline with Ahsoka, especially what you've established with where she went, you know, or where she was at the time of Rebels, what is, you know, what is her journey? And you talk about a character that should be on the big screen, you know, which, by the way, you know, there hasn't
supposedly she's in season 2 of Mandalore.
Well, and that's what I was getting at. It was announced a few weeks ago that Rosario Dawson will be Ahsoka Tano for season 2 of Mandalorian. And to have, I love the fact that she, you know, lobbied for that and really wanted to do it. You know, she's a nerd at heart and stuff, but that's such an interesting character that, you know, you want to see live action, you know, go beyond animation. So, but anyway,
I think what was I gonna say? And I think the best part about what's going on with the Siege of Mandalore right now is the events are happening concurrently to Revenge of the Sith.
right.
And so instead of doing it before Revenge of the Sith, and I think it's a really smart choice by Filoni and company, because as events are happening, they're alluding to the events of Revenge of the Sith, and you know we're getting closer and closer to Order 66, which will probably happen sometime in the next episode, based off of events that happened. And I don't want to give too much away, but because it did just drop yesterday, so I mean, people probably haven't had the chance to watch it. I know you haven't had the chance to watch it, Marcus,
about the Clone Wars is it's such a great companion to the prequel movies, especially episode 2 and episode 3, that
it gives them a lot more depth,
right, to understand what was really going on. And you know, if you're getting to the point now that we have all the movies out, you know, most of them are on Disney Plus now, but if you're getting to that point where I want to watch the linear storyline, like you want to start with that with episode 1 and 2, but in between episode 2 and 3, you want to start with the Clone Wars, you know, which I think is an interesting take to really look at the story in a linear, you know, timeline as it unfolds. I think that just makes the Clone Wars and Rebels so much more powerful. This is what's going on at that time. We're not focusing on the main characters that you have, you know, grown up to love, but
yeah, if you watched Attack of the Clones and then watched all of the Clone Wars and then watched Revenge of the Sith would make a hell of a lot more sense.
Yeah, because you're not trying to cram everything, you know, you're not trying to cram this huge story and background into 2 hours.
Hey, wait, that's been a theme today, hasn't it?
God, I'm telling you what, I'm like, at some point, I feel like they're going to have to do like some animated shorts or series to explain what the fuck was going on between The Last Jedi and Skywalker and everything in the background, so it doesn't feel so crammed. But anyway, all right. Julie, this one's for you. I was thinking about you for the past week. Because I don't engage in nonsense on social media, I just stay satirical more than anything else. I don't care how people are arguing about politics or whatever, or who said what, or, you know, the latest about Trump telling people to inject disinfectant. What? I know. But my point is, anytime I hear something, I have a solution. I get off social media and I turn on an episode of The West Wing. And it's What would Josiah Bartlett say? Because it's better in fiction. And I've got two friends that I've started, that I got them into the show to the point it's start binge watching it. If you start binge watching it now, you will wrap up the West Wing by the time we get to election day, and it might make you feel better.
That could backfire though, because you'd feel better until you had to go to the election booth, and then you'd be eminently depressed.
I was gonna say you'd feel better until you have to go back to reality.
Right, I
Yeah.
know.
And,
So,
yeah,
And then the crash.
yeah,
right.
and then crash.
But I have to throw the West Wing in there right now, as if you want to feel good about politics, it's always better in fiction. Here you go. It's okay to start binge watching that.
Marcus, speaking of quality quarantine memes, I just saw a picture of Evander Holyfield with a mask hanging off one side of his face, and it says, "Damn you, Mike Tyson."
And I was telling Brendan about this not too long ago, because I found the Blu-ray for $1 at Dollar Tree and had to get it. But it's been on cable lately. And if you've never seen this movie, you must, because Brendan and I got hammered at the press screening, and then we went to the pub and continued even more. But I'm talking about a great boxing movie called Grudge Match with Robert De Niro and Sylvester
Oh
Stallone.
my God, we did get drunk that day. We got so drunk I forgot about it.
It's a great time to revisit movies that you have forgotten, or like, with what we do, most of the movies we see are one-timers. There's not too many movies that we go back and watch over and over, or we forget about them because we see so many. And it was just a fun night. The movie was not too heavy or emotional. It was great to see Stallone and De Niro going off each other, poking fun at the boxing characters that made them famous.
Kevin Hart was really good in that movie too.
Right. You had
riffing off Alan Arkin.
Right. And those two could do a comedy act together.
Yeah.
On top of that, Kim Basinger still looked good. And on top of that, you throw in, John Berthenol, who is always fantastic. And by the way, if in case you're wondering, yes, it's okay to start going back and watching The Punisher on Netflix. But it's one of those great little movies that if you have a chance to find it, and you are a boxing fan, you love Rocky movies, Raging Bull, and you love these actors, I'm not saying it's a great movie, but it's very, very funny, and we couldn't stop laughing when we saw it at the press screening. And I had the same reaction when I watched it again one day. And I even picked up on some word jokes that they threw in the movie that I guess I didn't, I didn't catch the first time.
Like when you laugh a lot in a movie, you miss a lot of things. Like one of the movies that this is one of the few movies I've ever done this to, where I finished the movie, walked out, bought another ticket, and walked right back into the movie. And that was the second Grumpy Old Men movie, Grumpier Old Men. Because I laughed so goddamn hard, I knew I missed like 10 lines. And sure enough, I went back and I laughed at all new points in the movie because I was laughing during those points the first time I went. So yeah, it's movies that can induce that, belly laugh, that your face hurts, because you're laughing so hard and so long. You're going to miss lines because they just come rapid fire and you're still laughing from 2 jokes ago.
Well, the TCM film festival got canceled like a lot of other things. And in talking about classic movies, anything with Walter Matthau and Jack Lemmon, you will never be disappointed. Any movie they did together, even if the movie wasn't really that good. I mean, the one where they're on the cruise, what was it, Out to Sea, I think is what it's called. It's not a great movie. I mean, it really isn't. But it's hilarious to watch those two go off against one another. And then, of course, Brent Spiner play kind of the cruise director villain while he's also doing big, song and dance and stuff. And anything Brent Spiner does is great. You know, it's always good to see him outside of the makeup.
Speaking of which, does he get it like contractually put into his movie contracts that he gets to do a song and dance number?
If not, he should.
Well, because every time I see him like at a con, he breaks out into song. Like when I was sitting there talking, this is gonna be 10 years ago. I was sitting there talking voices with Tom Kane, who's the voice of Yoda on Clone Wars, and like
Right.
20 other voices. And Brent just bursts out into song just to piss off Jonathan Frakes, who was at the table next to him. And Tom Kane goes, "Who the hell's singing?" I'm like, "Oh, I don't even have to look. That's Brent."
That's about par for like course. But anyway, yeah, a little great recommendation if you happen to find it on a streaming service or whatever. Grudge Match. It's one of those hidden gems of movies that we've seen over the last 8 years since doing that nerd show. And yes, we did actually celebrate our 8th anniversary this past month in quarantine. So now, Julie, besides Preacher and anything Aaron Sorkin, have you watched anything else or gone back to watch anything?
Yeah, I really like Killing Eve. Finished that a while ago.
Yes, thank you. We got to talk about that. All right, so we're going to have a Killing Eve show eventually, once season 3 gets wrapped up. But Julie and I have been discussing this. And Julie, tell us why this is a great show.
I think it's really great because there's some really good characters in there, and there's some really good humor. It's got a little bit of everything. The action isn't superb, but it's not, choppy and janky. So, you can get away with it. But I think also it's got some really great female characters that they don't tout in your face that they're females. They're just strong characters.
Right.
And it's really great to see them kind of work together, but then work against each other, and then kind of keep you guessing of like what's really going on here. Is what I'm seeing real, or is that kind of a farce? And I kind of like that. So I think it's really great in that it gives you a little bit of everything, and it's not incredibly overt. It's very smooth and easy to watch.
If you don't know about this show, and you can get the first 2 seasons on Hulu right now, my kid sister has been trying to get me into this show for the longest time, and I finally did. But you're basically dealing with Jodie Comer plays a psychopath female assassin who's kind of emotionally immature but has this really warped sense of humor about everything. And just the way she does things is very humorous. And Sandra Oh plays the British intelligence agent who is trying to track her down. And then, of course, a little bit of a spoiler, but Jodie Comer's, character kind of falls in love with her. So now you've got this whole weird psychopath assassin love twist thing going on. Jodie Comer is absolutely fantastic in this show. And I'm gonna say something that's very controversial to Julie.
I already know it's coming. I already know.
Waiting for the eye roll. Yes, Jodie Comer.
He's going to lie to you. He's going to flat out lie to you. Yes.
Jodie Comer is just as beautiful as Charlize Theron.
That's a lie. That's a flat out lie, sir. And I would thank you to retract that statement.
Well, at least right up there. She is quickly moved up into my top 5 nerd actresses that I would love to interview and just have a conversation with after watching Killing Eve. Season 3 is going on right now for those in America. You can catch it weekly on Sundays on AMC with their partnership with the BBC. But I think one of the things that makes this show really good is they're not stretching out the storyline to where you're getting bogged down and everything. I mean, it flows very nicely. They do 8 episodes a season, very much like British TV is their norm. And it just, I feel like from episode to episode, there's not really kind of any downtime, anything that's boring, that's taking my interest away, especially when you're, exploring the backstory of these characters. as they are, in season 3 a little bit more about, who taught Jodie Comer's character how to be an assassin. But it's just humorous. I mean, I laughed my ass off at the beginning of season 3. I mean, I literally just finished season 2 that afternoon and went right into the season premiere of, season 3 to a wedding. And then her handler shows up and she goes batshit crazy and basically just ruins everything. And this great melodrama, drama of a fight. And then everybody's best friends afterwards. Just like, no way in real life does that happen. They're very humorous. So, Killing Eve is definitely one of the best shows out there right now. Now, what got you into Killing Eve? Were you just curious about it, or?
I had heard about it, but I'd never really looked into it, so I didn't really know what it was about. I just heard that it was a really great show. And then one day I saw it on Hulu. It just popped up on Hulu, and I was like, oh, what is that about? And once I realized that Sandra Oh was in it, I was like, oh, well, it can't be too horrible. I tend to really like her. And then once I read what it was about, I was like, oh, well, that sounds really interesting. And then once I tried the first episode, I was like, okay, I have to watch the whole thing now.
Like, you love her enough to watch episodes of Grey's Anatomy?
No, I don't love anyone that much.
No, I don't know. I will freely admit, and everybody can ridicule me on this, I have never seen an episode of Grey's Anatomy, but I watched about 30 minutes of an episode because somebody was telling me that I need to, that she was trying to explain something to me. It's like, it's a metaphor. I'm like, I like you enough. I will watch 30 minutes of Grey's Anatomy. I don't know anything about these characters. I know. If you're a guy and you do this, you should automatically know it's always a beautiful woman that makes you do this. You're not doing it on your own free will.
I am Jack's complete lack of surprise.
I'm not ashamed to say it. A beautiful woman made me do it. But anyway, but yeah, Killing Eve is great. We're not going to get too much into it because there's obviously a lot that we can talk about with this show. And once we get through season 3, yes, there will be a podcast review and to talk about how great these characters are. But I do agree with you, Julie, that they're not so in your face about, hi, we're women and and all that. In fact,
and that's the kind of strong female character that I like. I love strong female characters. I don't like when they have to like make a badge out of it. I don't like when it has to be a constant reminder of I am a woman and I am strong. Like, no, just be strong. And people will take notice of the fact that you're a woman later, afterwards.
If you have to tell people, you probably aren't. Like it's no different for women than it is for men in this instance. That if you have to tell people you're a badass, you're not a badass.
Exactly.
Well, but I do have to say, the way Gal Gadot wears that Wonder Woman outfit, that's a great badge to let me know that you're a beautiful woman and strong.
I can't roll my eyes hard enough right now. I just can't.
I know. I just had to throw that out there just to annoy you.
She was in the Israeli army. I don't need to know, and nobody has to tell me she was a badass.
Well, yeah, I know, right? That's also Julie saying that you better not pick me for the press screen.
It's true. That's very true.
I got dibs on other things.
Yeah.
Anyway, so because it's the 10th anniversary of the season finale, I want to poke fun kind of at a show that somebody reminded me of. It's a good time to get back into. And I'm not exactly saying it is, but I did kind of binge watch it in the background. Lost. The season finale was 10 years ago. Was on ABC for 6 years. And Brendan and I love to make fun of this show to a point of the first season was really good, and then they didn't really, I don't think they expected to actually.
The writer's strike?
Yeah, and then they just had to really quickly, we got to write up more storylines and parallel universes and this and that, and, somehow it unfolded over 5 more seasons. So I've gone back to watch a little bit more, and I've kind of watched it with a friend. and some things that I've noticed about Lost. I'm not into the show as much as I once was. I'm not knocking some of the writing or the performances or anything like that. I remember when everybody was crazy about this show and like week to week, and everybody's on the internet talking about their theories and stuff. It's not one that I would personally go back to and watch over and over. I will watch it with like a friend and somebody else, but I don't know if I could handle watching all 6 seasons of Lost and binge watching it like crazy, like some folks do. Is that well, I already know Brendan's answers. Like, fuck no, I'm not getting into that show. But Julie, is that a show you ever watched? Would you ever go back to watching that show?
I have never seen that show, not a single episode.
Are you excited to check it out?
I am not. That will not be happening. But
Okay.
thank you for offering.
All right. Well, like I said, I thought it was kind of interesting that it's been 10 years and, it was so popular at the time. And
Yeah, like I said about that show 10 years, however many years ago when we started this podcast, Lost at the beginning of the first season was a description of the characters. And at the beginning of the second season, it was a description of the writers.
The good thing, though, about the writer's strike is that we got Dr. Horrible. You got to love Dr. Horrible.
there you
Yeah.
go.
But it also killed Lost and Heroes. So
Yes.
Yeah.
Haven't seen Heroes, but
I go back and I look at Lost now as that. It's another shining example of why you don't need 20 to 25 episodes in a season anymore. You could have boiled all that down to 13 episodes. Because in binge watching and going back, I'm like, it really does drag. I didn't notice that the first time, but
the first time you were only getting them one a week. So it was a different perspective.
I go back and watch now, I'm not saying that, again, I'm not knocking the storylines or certain things that, that I really do.
I'm completely knocking it. All of it.
But yeah, now that I go back and watch it, you really should just be 13 episodes a season. But so I want to come back around to this. Brendan, you mentioned 24 earlier in the podcast. That's a good show to get back into right about now.
And I will say this, if you're younger, like if you're watching this and you're in your 20s, do the 24 challenge. I did it. When that first season came out on Blu-ray, we sat there, and I believe the season starts at 8:00 in the morning.
Right.
And we got a whole group of friends together in my buddy's house, and we watched every single episode in order at the exact time of day it was supposed to be watched.
Yeah.
And we stayed up for 24 hours and watched it. And I say, if you're in your 20s, do that, because if you're in your 40s, you won't be able to.
No, I like
true.
I like sleep way too much.
Hell, I've been a big proponent of naps during the quarantine. I've really, really gotten on the nap train.
Brendan, are you glad to have rediscovered naps? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, I'm sitting here wondering why in kindergarten I fought against taking them.
Brendan's going to be like, okay, what has this podcast done so I can go take that nap?
Because I got to DM a D&D game at 3:00 over Zoom, so I figure I can get about 2 hours nap in between.
There you go. That's how that works. Yeah, I guess a couple of years ago, I binged watched the first season of 24 to see if it still held up. And it was like, yeah, it really did. I mean, not every season was as good as others. There were, especially towards the end, it was like, and it kind of drags. But it's also one of those shows that, again, now that it's not on live TV and you're waiting from week to week, which, was a brilliant concept in the day, I don't want to do that. You want to binge watch. You want to be able to do a couple of episodes here and there and then go back to it, or spend a day and a half to get through 10 episodes of something. That's the culture that we live in now. And why it's funny to even still talk about like regular TV, about why they're still doing so many episodes. I feel that way about the superhero shows on the CW now. And I am not really recommending the last season of Arrow. Of course, we could have Allison Costa on who reviewed it and basically take a nap for 30 minutes while she complains and tells you how it was bad. But my point is, trying to watch all those from week to week now. I mean, would you go back? I mean, would you go and do it? Or would you just like, I'll watch 3 or 4 episodes in a row?
I haven't watched a single episode of any of the CW shows this year.
You're not missing
that's
anything.
Yeah, I haven't either.
that's
You're
not
not
entirely
missing
true. I watched the crossover event, and I think I watched the very last episode of Arrow. But other than that, I haven't watched anything of the Flash, anything of Legends. I have no interest in watching Batwoman because of exactly what Julie was talking about a couple minutes ago, where the whole thing is just, I'm awesome because I'm a woman. Well, you're Batwoman. You're supposed to be awesome because you're Batwoman.
Right.
So I just haven't had much interest in that. So the only thing I've really watched as far as superhero TV, I have gone back and watched Daredevil and the Punisher quite a bit. And I have gone back and watched Titans on DC.
Right.
Titans has been really good. I can't wait for the next season, get a full season of Dick as Nightwing. That's going to be great. So it took us 2 friggin' seasons to get to Nightwing, but now that he's here, I'm very excited.
Apparently, there are a few people from the Daredevil cast who are complaining that they can't get jobs now because of that show.
Wow,
Which is
that's
really
weird because it was an amazing show.
Yeah.
It had great critical reception.
Yeah.
But I know there was talks about in Phase 4 bringing both Charlie Cox and John Bernthal into the actual MCU as Daredevil and the Punisher.
Well, I do think it's a good time to bring back the Defenders. I mean, that was a great little crossover for Netflix, and I've gone back to watch it, here in the last few months. I'm like, bring me more. You kind of left us hanging there with, Elektra. She's gonna, obviously come back. So let's get to it. I
want a crossover MCU movie with Spider-Man, Daredevil, the Punisher, and just because it has to happen, Deadpool. I want those 4 on screen together. I think it would be hilarious. Right?
Well, I don't even need it necessarily on the big screen. We have Disney Plus.
Well, that's true too. But I mean, just because think about it, you have the silliness of Ryan Reynolds, the innocence of Tom Holland, the brooding, malice of John Bernthal, and then the hopeful Catholic guilt of Charlie Cox's Daredevil. That would be amazing to watch those 4 riff off of each other.
Very, very true. Very, very true. Well, I tell you what, can you imagine trying to do this quarantine if we didn't have streaming channels with stuff that we could go back and watch?
I mean, I have enough comics to catch up on. I don't think I'd really have a problem. And I got many figures that I need to be painting. So
I'm back into writing mode. So, I mean, it's not like I can't occupy my time and, there are video games. But anyway.
What I've been doing, I've other than streaming and drinking profusely, I've been, like I said, I found a way to use this format, Zoom. I've been running a D&D game once a week for 6 people. So, if this happened in the 80s, oh my God, we'd be screwed. First of all, we're too young to drink. So that's, they took that one away from us.
I would just play Super Nintendo all day.
Yeah, but you had this, like I said, you had the problem, like back in with the regular Nintendo, you had them blowing the disc half the time. Like this didn't work. You had the stupid CRT TV would burn out. It's the 80s. If this happened in the 80s, it would have sucked.
Yeah.
One of the things that I have found very interesting too is people, doing watching parties where everybody puts on a show or a movie or whatever, and you're kind of video conferencing and talking about it, and kind of like your own Mystery Science Theater 3000. We have found a way to cope, with video conferencing and stuff in society. for us, we put together how we could actually broadcast gaming tournaments, Ultimate Gaming League tournament. We did a Madden tournament not too long ago among the staff. And it worked out. It was kind of a weird way of how we had to do everything, but there's potential there.
We should actually do a Mystery Science Theater to pick 10 movies we hate and just do a series of us just ripping on these movies.
Julie,
I can't sit through the Joker again. I just can't. Don't make me do it, please.
I like how Julie knew exactly where I was going with that.
Don't make me do it. I can't.
That's all right, Julie. We can find somebody to stand in for you.
I don't have the brain capacity. I can't.
But there is Wonder Woman.
No, there isn't. No.
Well, we're going to wrap this up, but I want to, obviously there is a ton of shows that you can get into and everything. One of the great things that I liked about Hulu is I love how they have the FX catalog on there. They've partnered up with, so you can go back and watch old shows like Sons of Anarchy, Justified, and, Brendan and I will both agree that you can always go back to Justified and be entertained.
The Shield too.
And The Shield.
Basically anything with Walton Goggins in it.
Pretty much, yeah.
Justified just gave us the bonus of also having Timothy Oliphant.
Right. So I also want to bring up two comedies that are great to get into right now. And the reason I'm talking about FX is What We Do in the Shadows, the little mockumentary about Yes.
So good. So funny.
The movie, Chloe James and I did the movie years ago. That was written by Jermaine Clement and Taika Waititi. And brilliant movie, fantastic. So when they decided to, adapt it for television with little 30-minute comedic episodes, not even necessarily the original cast, and you've got these great British actors, that it came into, it won't even take you long to get through the first season, which is on Hulu. And they just started season 2 last week. It is absolutely brilliant and hilarious.
Oh, it's hilarious. Yeah, it's so funny. Especially if you're one of those people that loves Flight of the Conchords, you're gonna absolutely love the show.
I feel good about myself having discovered Flight of the Conchords.
It's so good. It's so funny. And actually, if you want to binge that would actually I think that would make you feel better during quarantine because it's so funny and it's so light. And it's a bit wholesome, and I think it's on Prime. I think
you're right. You are right, Julie. It is so wholesome that the episode where they break the coffee mug and they have to go become gigolos.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one too. But I discovered them as a band back in when I just got out of the Army in 2003, and I think. Or maybe I was still in. I don't know. I think it was their HBO special, their first HBO special. Yeah. And I went and downloaded all of their music and looked up whatever I could find in New Zealand. That's what had introduced them to America. But the show was brilliant. Anyway, What We Do in the Shadows, great mockumentary style, vampires. Everybody is perfect on there. In season 1. If you don't laugh at this episode, the one where they have to go before the tribunal of vampires,
yes, that's really funny.
Stars, like Tilda Swinton, Evan Rachel Wood, who's filling in for her boyfriend, Marilyn Manson. Wesley Snipes is a tribunal vampire, and of course Danny Trejo. It's just that and all of them together in one scene, which is so many jokes about vampires from other movies, was brilliant. But that's a great one I encourage you, it won't take you that long to get through the first season. If you don't laugh at this, I have no hope for you when it comes to comedy. I'm just going to say it. You don't believe in comedy if you don't laugh at this. Am I wrong to say that, Julie?
No, I don't think so. There's so many different kinds of comedy in it. There's slapstick and there's dry humor and dark humor. I think that there's something for everybody. So I think it's fair to say if you can't laugh in the show, then you just can't laugh at anything.
Well, I recommended the show to someone who was trying to tell me, man, that show on Netflix, The Ranch, is pretty funny. No, corrected. Sam Elliott is funny in that show. Everybody else is just that 70s show with a redneck accent.
Mm-hmm.
Just throwing it out there. But I recommended What We Do in the Shadows, and they like PM'd me and like, I don't really kind of get it. It's like, again, you're like somebody that doesn't get Monty Python and the Holy Grail. I have no hope for you.
Yeah, I can't help you.
Yeah,
there's no help for you.
I'm just done.
Like I can understand if you just don't. That's not your flavor of humor,
Right.
But if you don't understand the
Yeah.
Holy Grail, I have to wonder if you have a pulse, like, or at least like brain waves. Can we get an EEG going?
Right.
All right, people
So
are weird.
it should be noted that if you're running the clip, Bring Out Your Dead during the pandemic, no, you're not wrong for running that clip. We need a little.
Did it
humor.
twice already. Did it twice already.
And that's why you are a nerd. That's why we love you. The other show that I want to recommend, and I'm going to end it on this, and then I'm going to let Brendan do his thing and ramble on for a little bit. No, I'm just kidding. Give us a great education about what beer you should be drinking during a pandemic. That can be an entire hour show in itself, but we got to let Brendan, our brewer over here, recommend some good brews while we're all isolated. But anyway,
So-
hold on.
Okay.
Last show I want to get to before we get to that, you can catch the first 5 seasons on Netflix right now. They just wrapped up its final season, and it will drop on Netflix here fairly soon. It's a great Canadian television show by Eugene Levy and Catherine O'Hara called Schitt's Creek.
Schitt's Creek. I knew you were going to say that.
Yes. If you don't know the premise, Eugene Levy and Catherine O'Hara are really rich, and their business manager runs off with all their money, and they didn't pay taxes, so the IRS confiscates everything. Catherine O'Hara plays a very melodramatic former soap opera actress, and the only asset that they are really left with is a town called Schitt's Creek that they bought as a joke that the IRS didn't want. So it's the only place they could go to. It's like out in the middle of nowhere in the South or whatever. And Chris Elliott, who is always good in pretty much anything he does, plays the town mayor, who is just an idiot, with these sortly weird cast of characters. So you've got, these two, like, the fashion princess, and then the son played by Dan Levy, which is actually Eugene Levy's actual son, who is this kind of pansexual emo type kid.
And he's my favorite character. I think he's just such a great character. I love
You
him.
took the words right out of my mouth. I'm binge watching it again, getting ready for season 6, which I've not downloaded. I want to watch it on Netflix. But him and Stevie,
Yes, so
they
funny.
really make that show. All of them are great. And it's also kind of done in the same vein as, Waiting for Guffman, and movies like that. So you very much get that dynamic with Catherine O'Hara and Eugene Levy and stuff. But it premiered on the Pop channel on cable. And if you don't know what that channel is, you're pretty much like everybody else. So don't worry about it. But the show, drops to Netflix fairly quick after a new season. That is comedy gold.
It
It
is.
won't take you long. You will not be bored. Again, it's one of those hidden gems that most people never discovered actually on cable. I think they really did discover it on Netflix. But there's something in there for everybody. And Julie is absolutely right. David, played by Dan Levy, is probably the best character on there, as he's exploring his sexuality, everything else, and the way that he just looks at life. I think I would be like Stevie, that I just want to be your friend because I will constantly be entertained by how everything annoys you. Also, by the way, I feel like you are Stevie in a lot of ways, Julie.
I'll
Another reason why we love you.
take it.
But that's a great show to go and check out if you're looking for a good comedy. I'm not recommending The Ranch. I'm sorry. I'm just not. If you want to watch Sam Elliott, be Sam Elliott on that show, I respect your choices. Because
You
he's
want to
Sam.
see Sam Elliott watch Tombstone?
Yeah. Or if you're feeling really daring, you could watch his hit movie on Hulu called The Man Who Killed Hitler and then
And Bigfoot.
Don't do it. Oh God, don't do it. It's not that dire. Don't do it.
Yeah. Number one on our list when we do a Mystery Science Theater 3000 movie. But anyway. All right, we're going to end this show. We have plenty of other things that we're going to talk about. Next week, we're actually talking about things you shouldn't watch during a pandemic, which will be very interesting. But Brendan, while we are isolated and only going to the grocery store and we can't go to the pub and drink with one another, tell our audience some beers that people need to get that are really good for isolation.
Well, we're going to stick with session-based beers, and by session-based, we mean low alcohol, so you can drink a lot of them, because if you're like me, you have been putting away a few during this quarantine. So locally here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, you can find Community Brewing Company from Dallas. They have a brand new low-calorie IPA called Hop Skinny. It is 4.2% alcohol, only 95 calories, only 4 grams of carbs, and it has wonderful hop flavor and aroma. It's light, crisp, and crushable, everything you want from a good session beer. And you won't feel too guilty about it because it's under 100 calories per beer. So that's a good one. And if we want to go national for a beer that's similar to that, or just a nice light easy beer that you can drink and pound, there's a couple of them. Dogfish Head has a similar low-cal IPA. It's called Slightly Mighty. You can get that nationwide, but it's a little on the pricey side for a low-cal. Like, I've seen it everywhere from $12 to $13 for a 6-pack, and I'm like, all right, I know it's Dogfish Head, but it's a low-cal IPA, folks. Calm down. Another one you can look at nationally it's more of a hoppy American Pilsner. It's called Firestone Walker Pivo, which is Czech for beer. So they basically just called it beer. But, hey, what are you going to do? And then let's do one international beer. Specifically, so this week, just the other day, actually, I think it was the 23rd, was the National German Day of Beer. It is the anniversary of the Reinheitsgebot, the German purity law, which dates back to 1516. So it was the 504th anniversary of the Reinheitsgebot. So we'll do a German beer. Specifically, we're going to do the Weihenstephaner Kristallweizen. It's got all the wonderful flavor of a Hefeweizen that you like, but it's filtered out all the wheat and the protein, so it's nice and crisp and clear and clean, and it doesn't sit in your stomach like a lead weight, and you can drink a lot of them. It is actually fairly cheap. You get like a 22-ounce bottle for like $2. And Weihenstephaner is also the oldest brewery in the world at almost 1,000 years old. And they're out of Munich, Germany, and you can get that nationwide. That's distributed all over the United States. So you can pretty much do any beer from Weihenstephan, and it's going to be a good experience. But specifically, because we're doing light, crisp, and easy to drink beers, we're going to stick with the Kristallweizen.
Nice. Yeah, there's a lot of great things to get out there and try while we're all kind of isolated and stuff.
Oh, one quick other beer nerd news. Germany has officially canceled Oktoberfest this year.
Yes.
Due to COVID-19. So if you were planning on going to Oktoberfest, I'm sorry, it's not going to happen. What I will say to you is this, though. There is another big German festival that centers on beer and celebration and whatnot. I don't know if any of y'all know this, but there is an area of Germany that actually celebrates Carnival. In Cologne, Germany, home of the Kolsch, which is one of my favorite beer styles, they actually celebrate Carnival, and basically the entire point of it is to sin as much as possible before Lent starts.
I'm listening.
So yeah, so go check out Carnival, and that happens obviously in February or March, depending on how the Lenten calendar falls. So if you want to go to Germany for a crazy festival, but you don't want to wait until Oktoberfest 2021, Carnival is an option. And there's a really good documentary on the entirety of German beer culture on Amazon Prime right now. So something you can watch, something you can stream. It's called Beerland. It is made by an American expatriate who's lived in Germany for over a decade. And it's about his journey of trying to understand the German beer culture and not just going to the touristy shit. So it was really, he's a weird cat. I'm not going to lie. The American, he's definitely dances to his own drum. He's a little socially awkward, but it was a very in-depth, detailed look at German beer culture, and I really appreciate the work he put into it. It's absolute. If you're a beer nerd and you want to know about German beer culture and German beer history, it's absolutely worth the watch. It's called Beerland.
Nice. All right. Fantastic. Like I said, there's a lot of great things to try and everything. And also, I don't honestly know if we consider them essential home brew stores, but if they're still open with what's going on and, your
Homebrew HQ is, you can do curbside pickup or order online.
Well, what I'm saying is it's a good time to learn how to brew right about now. If you're isolated and you have been wanting to try it. But I do have to share this quick story. If you're going to get into it as part of it, you can go one or two routes. Do it with your buddies, or they can get busy and let you fly solo and nearly let you burn down your own kitchen.
And you can message either Marcus or I if you have questions on how to get started.
Right. But if they do that, sometimes throwing you on the deep end is a good way to learn and, get through the process. So, all right. Thank you, everybody, for checking us out. Like I said, this is our new format for the podcast. Now that we have video conferencing, you get to see our snarky looks and, our own little home studios and stuff like that. We'll be back next week talking about things that you shouldn't watch during a pandemic and why they shouldn't be recommended to you. The movie Outbreak on streaming services. But we have a whole new schedule. We are back on Saturday mornings, and just check out our schedules and check out our YouTube channel. We'll be live, and also our website. Unfortunately, we had technical difficulties, so I didn't get a chance to embed this on our website. We're still trying to work out the kinks. But we appreciate you checking us out, and for those that are going to go back and watch it later. Instead of closing it out with our normal music, we have something new where we're closing it out with other music, things that make us happy. So while I end this broadcast and say goodbye, I'm going to click on some music. But guys, say goodbye.
Bye,
everybody.
Bye.